Hi, I'm Cindy, and this is the Community Effect Podcast. On this show, we talk about all things teaching and learning, from building authentic relationships to creating a classroom culture where students thrive. We dig into mindset, motivation, engagement, and behavior, because real classroom success isn't just about lesson plans. It's about the community you build. These are conversations for teachers who want more than to just survive. And these are strategies for educators who are ready to take their community to the next level. This is the Community Effect Podcast. Oh my goodness, we are finally doing this. Welcome to the Community Effect Podcast. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am to be here today and to finally have the space where we can talk about what really makes classrooms work and thrive, which is community. If you're a teacher who feels overwhelmed, if you're struggling with behavior issues, or if you're wondering why group work isn't working and it's an absolute train wreck, or why your students just won't engage, first off, let me tell you, you are not alone. And second, you're absolutely in the right place. My name is Cindy Robinson, and I've spent the last 29 years working in education as a teacher, a principal, and a school improvement coach. And now I'm on a mission to help teachers create classrooms that actually work for them, places where students feel connected, safe, and motivated, and where teachers aren't burning out and trying to hold everything together. They're actually working in classrooms that they love and teaching, doing what they dreamed of doing. Right? And the secret sauce for all of this, let me tell you, it's building community. Community is everything. So let's get real for a second. Have you ever had that class, the one where you're putting out fires all day long, students are arguing, motivation is low, and you're repeating yourself like 1,000 times a day, or you've answered 1,000,000 questions in the last hour and a half? Well, I've been there too. And the mistake I made was thinking that community was just something that you did the first 2 weeks of school. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this, because there are a lot of different definitions of what community is. And here's the thing. People talk about building community like it's this magical thing that just happens if you are a nice person, or if you've built some procedures and routines in your classroom, or you are having class meetings. And to be honest, that's not the case. But here's what I learned through my 29 years is that community is not an event. It's not an icebreaker or a team building activity or even implementing those few procedures and routines. It is the foundation for everything that we do as teachers. And without it, everything else, behavior, learning, engagement, it all starts to crumble, because community is intentional. It's strategic. And if you know how to break it down, you can actually measure your success and see where you need to grow. Throughout my career, I was always analyzing my classroom and looking for ways to make it run smoother, not necessarily quieter, because I love the student discourse and when kids are working together and the excitement in the room. I love that piece of it. But I was really looking to have more of an impact. And I guess you can say that I've been a student of community for the past 29 years, and I'm still learning. But as a teacher, I was fortunate to work at a district that valued community. In fact, we were a tribes community. And I was given some of the best training in the world, from tribes to Fred Jones to Kagan. And that did help me strengthen my classroom community. And it helped my students achieve at higher levels. But it wasn't a magic bullet, because community doesn't come in a package. It's a process. It's a way of being, right? Building community is something that we do continuously, day in and day out. It's not another thing. It's not something, that you can just get this curriculum and now all of a sudden you have a community. And I spent years trying to figure out what exactly is a community. Because, like I said, I think there are a lot of different definitions of what that is out there. And I know that throughout my years, I've had colleagues who have come to me and asked me about, how I built my community and what was it that I did differently. And during some of those times, I was what you would call unconsciously competent, meaning I knew what I was doing. Like I knew how to build community, but I didn't really know how to explain it. And so that was my next task, was really unpacking community so I could be consciously competent and understand all the different facets that went into building a community. And as I started to gather a better understanding of why I was successful, both in the classroom and as an administrator building community on my campus, which was one of the big things that moved my school from an F to an A, was building that really solid, community where people felt valued and they felt safe and they were willing to take risks. And it was really the foundational piece that allowed our curriculum and our instructional practices to take flight. So I was able to kind of unpack these things that I did, and I started to see these themes that came out, right? These different attributes that were coming out about community. And I developed a tool that I love, and I call it the ACCT Formula, because it was a way of taking this big, overwhelming idea of classroom community and turning it into something that is clear and actionable and measurable. And so today, we're going to take a little time and I'm going to do like a high-level overview of what the ACCT Formula is, because I believe it's a secret sauce that could change the way you teach, and hopefully it will change the way you think about community. And because I'm all about giving practical strategies, I'm going to break each one of these components of the ACCT Formula down for you and give you some strategies that you can implement today to strengthen the community that you've already built in your classroom. So the ACCT Formula is a simple, measurable way to build a classroom community. And it's made up of 4 really critical components. And they are authentic relationships, climate, culture, and teacher mindset and collaboration. And each of these plays a critical role in creating a thriving classroom. And so we're going to break them down, but I also want you to know that they kind of work together. They have this symbiotic relationship, meaning that they cross over or they blend into each other. So we'll start with authentic relationships. And this is really where it all begins. Relationships are the foundation of your classroom community. If students don't feel connected to you or to each other, you're going to have an uphill fight all year long, right? Every day, it's just going to be this uphill battle. And no, this doesn't mean that you have to be their best friend, and I definitely wouldn't recommend that. But it does mean that you are intentional about building trust and showing students that you care and creating a space where they feel seen and valued. Because when students feel like they matter, they engage more, they participate more, they take ownership of their learning, and that little thing called classroom management, oh my gosh, it's so much easier. Authentic relationships center around a number of different things. So it's the teacher-student relationship, it's student-to-student relationships, it's building an understanding of inclusion and empathy and equity and a sense of belonging in the classroom. It's about having parents as partners and engaging families in meaningful ways. And it's also about creating your teacher tribe, right? Engaging and creating meaningful relationships with your colleagues. Because a strong classroom really starts with a strong teacher network. We're not meant to do this in silos. So if you need some quick wins on building teacher-student relationships, here's a couple strategies for you. The first one is greet students at the door. Now, this might seem like a simple thing, but it's really powerful. And when you stand at the door and you greet each student by name and you give them a fist bump or a high five or even just a warm smile, you are setting the tone for the day. And not only that, it's an opportunity to read the energy of your students. who looks tired or who's upset, who needs a moment before diving into the day. This 30-second habit is one of the easiest and most effective ways to start building trust with your students. The second strategy is the power of positive calls home, phone calls, right? Or even notes. If you don't want to make the phone call, I know that some teachers are really resistant to that, but really, you're going to get so much bang for your buck if you do this. So let's flip the script on what a phone call home is. Typically, parents only hear from the school when something goes wrong. But imagine the impact of a positive phone call home. Pick one student a day, call their family just to share something good. Or like I said, send a note. Maybe they helped a friend, or they participated more than usual, or they just showed kindness to somebody. This one action creates a ripple effect. The students will feel valued. The parents see you as an ally, and you will see the energy of your classroom start to shift. So if you have an opportunity, I encourage you to try one of those two strategies. Let's move on to the next part of the ACT formula, which is climate. This is the feeling of your classroom, the tone, the structure, the way students move through their day, and how they interact with each other. Walk into any classroom, and within 30 seconds, you know if that has been intentionally built, right? If it's an intentionally structured room, or if it's total chaos. Your classroom climate's shaped by a couple different things like norms and agreements, or its physical setup, right? The physical environment, how you've laid out the classroom, where kids go to get things, those type of things. It's also your routines and your procedures, how you create that predictable environment for students. It's about emotional and physical safety. So, we know that students need to feel safe in order to learn. It's about how your transitions and the flow is throughout your day. And it's about positive student discourse, because how students talk to each other matters. If your classroom feels tense, if students don't know what to expect, or if you feel exhausted just walking in, that's probably a good sign that your climate might need some attention. And the good news is climate can be shifted quickly by tightening up your systems and being consistent with your expectations. So maintaining those high expectations for behaviors and routines, and then being consistent with them. Here's a strategy that you can use. Set clear, consistent routines. The more predictability your classroom has, the safer your students will feel. And if they know what's expected of them, then they can focus on learning instead of feeling anxious about the unknown. So here's my challenge. If there's an area in your classroom where students seem confused, distracted, or unmotivated, ask yourself, is there a routine that I have in place for this that maybe I need to revisit or be more consistent with? And if not, is this an area where there should be a routine? And create one. Another strategy is to use a reset cue. If you ever feel like the energy of your class is spiraling, instead of reacting, which I have done many times before, implement a reset cue. Maybe it's a call and response, or an opportunity to do some deep breathing, or maybe you need to take a quick movement break. I love using reset and reflect moments where I see them starting to kind of go off task or get a little too excited, and I'll just let them know. I usually do a clap pattern, and I say, hey, where are we and where do we need to be? And we'll talk about it, and then we get right back into doing things. That reset and reflect is a quick check, and it brings focus back to the learning. Okay, so now let's move on to the third component, which is culture. Now, this is where things get deep. Culture isn't about rules, it's about values. It's about the kind of culture, the kind of atmosphere that you want to have in your classroom. For example, a culture of growth mindset. I want my students to know and believe that they can improve. I want to encourage resilience and perseverance. And so I value a growth mindset. I value collaboration. That's the next part of culture. where students are working together collaboratively for a common goal. I value student ownership, where students are able to take responsibility for their learning in their classroom. And I value a culture of autonomy and choice, where students have a voice and they get to decide, how they learn and what they're learning. These are the things that separate good classrooms from great ones. Because when you have a strong culture, students don't just follow rules. They understand why those rules exist, and they buy in. They take ownership. And that's where magic happens. Here's a strategy that you can use. Give your students leadership roles. Ownership is everything. And when students feel like they have a role in the classroom, they engage more, they behave better, and they take pride in their work. Things like classroom jobs or peer mentors or kindness captains, all of these build buy-in. Another strategy is to normalize mistakes with something called my favorite oops. If we want students to take risks in learning, then they need to know that mistakes are okay. And I loved using my favorite oops board, where students share the mistakes that led to learning moments. This shifts the mindset from I failed to I'm growing, which is definitely a game changer. All right. We are on to the last part of the ACT formula, which is teacher mindset and collaboration. And so teacher mindset, it's everything, right? Because you set the tone. It's your energy, your beliefs, and your approach that shapes your students' experiences. And let's get real. None of this will happen if your mindset isn't in the right place. If your beliefs about teaching and learning shape everything, then you have to focus on, what do you believe? If you believe that students can't succeed, then they won't. If you think behavior problems are just a part of teaching, then they will be. If you see Johnny, who was a problem last year in Mrs. So-and-so's class, and, you've heard all this stuff about this kid, if he comes into your classroom and you already have put in your mind that he is a challenging kid, I guarantee you he will be one for you because they live up to your expectations. Teacher mindset is all about reflection and action, right? Reflecting on your beliefs, understanding what your impact is, and taking a look at that. Like, how impactful am I? Measuring your progress with your students, taking a look at your instructional practices and asking yourself, are they engaging? Are they effective? Do I need to model more? We really need to be going back and looking at ourselves first. And then we need to set really clear intentions so that we are teaching with purpose. And let's talk about collaboration, because we as teachers, I promise you, are not meant to do this in silos. We are so much better when we are out there supporting each other and in helping each other build our practices. So if you don't have a team, or if you're in a school that isn't supporting collaboration, find your tribe. Find an online group or someone that you can engage with, that you can bounce ideas off of. Because when we actually talk about what's working and what's not, change happens. I hope you're not feeling isolated, and I hope that you're not out there struggling without support. And I'm here for you. If you've got questions, email me. I'm here. But there are lots of communities out there, and eventually I will be building a community so that you'll have a place where you can collaborate with like-minded teachers. But, we're better together. So find a community. All right. So why does all of this matter, right? Why am I so passionate about building community? Well, it's because I know it works. I know that when you are focused on building relationships, having a safe, predictable environment, when you have this value, we value a culture of learning and exploration and growth mindset and ownership. And when you are reflecting on your own teacher practices, I know that those things in combination create a classroom environment where students thrive. And I know because I've done it, because I've watched my students score in the highest levels of the district. I watched my school go from an F to an A. So I know it's possible. And I know that when these 4 elements are in place, your classroom will run smoother. Your students will be more engaged. You will spend less time with behavior issues, and you are actually going to enjoy teaching again. And that's the goal, isn't it? This podcast is here to give you the tools to make all of that happen. And coming up in future episodes, we're going to dive into practical strategies for building classroom community with action steps that you can implement right away. We're going to be taking deep dives into each part of the ACCT formula and their subcategories. You're going to hear real talk about the challenges that teachers are facing and how to overcome them with some honest conversation about what's working and what's not. We're going to provide some strategies for common classroom challenges like student motivation, group work, behavior issues. And you're going to hear from guest experts and teachers who are in the trenches doing this work right now, who have built classroom communities that are thriving. It's going to be a space where you feel supported and equipped to create the classroom that you want to teach in. And I know that was a lot, but this is just the beginning. So I hope you will choose one strategy, just one strategy from the list that I provided you today and implement it this week, and then let me know how it goes. And before we wrap up, I just have a couple quick things. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any future issues or episodes. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I hope you'll consider sharing it with a teacher friend who may need to hear it. And then come connect with me because I want to hear from you. I want to know what resonated, what questions you might have, what topics you might want me to cover. You can find me or email me actually at etp@etpcindyrobinson.com, or you can find me on social at crobin.kids on Instagram. Okay, that's a wrap. That was our first episode. Yay! I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here, for showing up, for doing this very important work. And I will see you next time on the Community Effect Podcast. Have a great day.